Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I'm joined by my guys, Kyle Collier and Caden Spruill, and we're going to break down the biggest problem facing this Kansas City Chiefs team as they're prematurely eliminated from the playoffs. They're not officially mathematically eliminated yet, but, this team is messed up. They've got so many issues, and I'm going to ask the question, what's wrong with the Chiefs? What's the biggest problem? And we'll start with Kyle. Try to answer that loaded question.
Yeah, thanks, Darcy. How long? Is there a limit to videos you can upload on Twitter? Okay, Twitter, YouTube. Man, that's the problem with this video. Is I feel like we could keep going and going and going, and then once we hit the record button to stop the recording, we're gonna be like, bleep, I forgot to bring this up. I forgot to bring this up. There's lots of problems. I guess I'll go back to the offseason. It's clear that their plan at defensive line just was never going to work, and they didn't feel confident enough to spend more resources at the position. They kind of just gave Karlaftis a contract. FAU got hurt. And they were like, okay, we'll bring back Charles Omenihu on a 1-year prove-it deal. We got to rely on Chris Jones to be Chris Jones. And Chris Jones has played better as of late, but he's 30 years old. So things start to go downhill after that. And like, he's still been great. He just hasn't been, NFL top 100, top 10 type of talent this year. Right. There's too many issues there. So I'll basically my cause or part of my blame is the defensive line, because Dak Prescott after, he kind of figured out that initial first quarter Spags blitz, it was kind of over. The Chiefs defense was predictable, and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are dudes. I do attribute a lot of the Cowboys' success against the Chiefs to just the other team has dudes, and CeeDee Lamb and Pickens are certainly that. But your secondary can only hold for so long. Prescott had all day, and the only time you heard Charles Omenihu's name was when you got a roughing the passer, questionable call. I get it, but George Karlaftis was nowhere to be found in that game. The only time anything in that pocket was ever disrupted was when Chris Jones just beat his man in a flash. But by then, Prescott was able to get away because nobody else in the pocket was collapsing anything. So I lay most of the blame at the feet of just not having a good enough plan for defensive line.
Yeah, and you touched on the offseason. I'll say really just the offseason as a whole. You talk about just not having enough dudes in the secondary. Christian Fulton, a guy that we gave guaranteed money to, has been inactive. I think he's only been actually active for maybe 2 games this season. And when he's been on the field, he's got cooked too. So, I can't remember exactly what his contract number is, but we gave him a hefty amount for a cornerback, and
2 for 20.
2 for 20. I think our secondary has held up pretty good for giving that much up to a guy that's not played. But when you talk about the defensive line, that's money that could be spent somewhere else to replenish put better guys in that position. And then you look at the draft. Josh Simmons was a hit on the first pick, but he's even sat games this season. Omar Norman-Lott, he's out for the year. You can't do anything about that, but he's a guy that you lost. Ashton Gelati hasn't really done a lot this year. Jeffrey Bossa, have we heard his name very much this year? Has he even been on the field? Just the offseason. Elijah Mitchell, another guy that we gave guaranteed money to, been inactive for almost all the entire season. Jalen Moore, a guy that we, gave, it paid off that we, gave him his contract whenever Josh Simmons was out. But, he may be able to contribute since we have some injuries up front now. But just a lot of questionable moves in the offseason. I think you're starting to see those holes really show each week for the Chiefs. Feels like each week you go into a game, there's a weakness that the other team can exploit in the Chiefs. And that hasn't been something that you could say about the Chiefs over the past few years, but it's the case this season, and you're starting to see that now.
I think the biggest problem that the Chiefs currently have that, isn't coaching related is the defensive line. George Karlaftis is a good player, not a great player, not a bad player, but you paid him like he is a good player that's ascending. He is not ascending. He's just a good player. I think Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu need to be cut. Not immediately, because then you literally have nothing, but they shouldn't be on this team next year. Derek Nottie, get rid of him. The defensive line sucks. They can't force any pressure. And it's why, the secondary got cooked against the Cowboys, because you're letting Dak Prescott just sit back there for 3 or 4 seconds until 2 number 1 wide receivers can beat their guy. And I have conceded less anger on the secondary after kind of thinking about it. I think the pass rush is a big reason why the Cowboy, or I guess the lack of pass rush, is the biggest reason why those Cowboys receivers ate. But I'm going to go in a different direction. I think the biggest problem is the Chiefs' offensive scheme. I think we've been, going into every season with Patrick Mahomes and expecting to see this high-flying offense that we saw in 2018, in 2019, and 2022. The Chiefs' offense is old, it's stale, it's predictable. They don't do what currently works. Teams around the NFL, like the Chicago Bears, the Buffalo Bills, the Eagles, they run the football effectively. The Chiefs ran the football effectively against the Cowboys, and they're like, you know what? We would rather pass. And it didn't work. It did not work. I just feel like Andy Reid's offensive scheme is just way too predictable, and it's not how the current NFL offense is run. The NFL evolves, and it almost feels like Andy Reid is stuck in the past, and it's worked because Patrick Mahomes is the best freaking player on the planet, but it's not working right now, and you've got to find a way to evolve, and they are just too stubborn. There's a lot of coaching hubris, and I think that's where the frustration lies for me, because for all the lack of talent that you've had, your coaching staff has let this team down constantly this year.
Yeah, and you bring that up, and that's really just has come to light this year. Just how much in the past that Patrick Mahomes was able to just erase maybe poor decision making or just mistakes by others around him, just being so damn good at playing quarterback in the NFL. It's pretty clear. Like watching that Cowboys game, I felt like Andy Reid was almost messing with the viewer almost, because those first 2 drives, I mean, they scored immediately. They were running the ball from under center. Hell, even Tony Romo was like, this is where they need to be. And I feel like we here in, Kansas City media have just been saying, it's enough RPOs out of shotgun, enough running the ball out of shotgun, right? And then we finally see that, and it's working against Dallas, and then it goes away from it. I don't get it. Like, I didn't understand it. Pacheco only had like less than 10 carries. He had like 5 or something like that. Kareem Hunt, I think I should have the box score pulled up right here. I do. He had 3 carries. I mean, I don't get it. 17 carries to your running backs. Mahomes had 3 carries. Worthy had 2. Okay. You need to run the ball a little bit more. It's clear that defenses have just adjusted to what Andy Reid has done, and he's failed to fight back.
Yeah, I think you guys are exactly right. I think just the lack of explosiveness, there's no explosive plays in this offense, it feels, anymore. The only way that they get explosive plays is usually from yards after catch from Rashee Rice. It's something that he catches over the middle, which brings up my next point. I think Tony Romo pointed out something that really stuck with me in the Colts game is the Chiefs don't get any explosive plays outside of the numbers. Everything that they do is in between the hashes and over the middle. And that's just something that you need in your offense in order to have success, whether it's deep down the sideline or just, out routes, simple out routes, just to break out and make those guys that are sitting in the middle, make them, kind of expand out and have to guard the whole field. And they're running so many RPOs right now that those guys can kind of just sit there and wait on those routes and just wait on Pat, he's had a couple of picks this year, and then just wait on him to make some type of mistake that, keeps them ahead of the sticks. So, I think the Chiefs really have to find out what it is that's keeping them from making those explosive plays and work on getting stuff outside the numbers and not working so much over the middle of the field.
So those wide receiver screens behind the line of scrimmage don't count? Because they run those all the time, and to a 36-year-old Travis Kelce.
Yeah, not working.
You tell me that isn't innovative? That's not reinventing the wheel? Like, man, it felt like...
Yeah, Andy Reid keeps running those like he's got Tyreek Hill back there, but Xavier Worthy's not Tyreek Hill, and neither is certainly Travis Kelce.
At 36? Like, what are we doing? Like,
and it's so weird because it doesn't feel that we've ever ran wide receiver screens to Travis before. I don't know that we've ever done that before this season.
it honestly feels like there's such a lack of trust that like Andy Reid's like, okay, well, we trust that Travis can catch the ball, so let's put him in a way where we used to use Tyreek Hill. And like, it's bonkers to me that, the offense is just so predictable, and I don't know ball like they do. And if I'm sitting on my couch like, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to run this out of this formation, the guys that get paid to do this for a living are going to sniff that out and stop you. And so it's just so frustrating. And that Colts game, you knew it was fool's gold. You knew that, okay, like they escaped, but they almost gave it away. Kareem Hunt fumbled, like your season was over, and they came back, they won. And then the very next week, on a short week, they go down and lose in the fashion that they did. But I feel like it's just been a microcosm of this season that, for every step they take forward, they take 2 steps back. And man, it just feels like they are just discombobulated and aren't mentally there.
Yeah, Darcy, you brought it up in our last video we made. So they're 6-6, and it's a valid question. You do have to wonder if the fight is still there. They've dug themselves a deep hole, and it's become clear to them. I would hope that Patrick Mahomes can't save them from everything. So you do wonder. Where's the motivation at?
Yeah, especially this being just, unfamiliar territory. The Chiefs have never been in any type of situation. Like, obviously, we know they've been down in games and come back and win, but it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about winning 6 games in a row to end the season. I mean, when teams are trying to play their best football and, really put things together and get ready for the playoffs, it's going to be really tough on this Chiefs team.
I mean, we'll talk about if the Chiefs can actually do that, and we'll do that right after this break. This video is brought to you by my friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. Every right deserves a fight. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, meaning no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and the sports book, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow their Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all football season long. Now, the Chiefs are currently sitting at 6-6 with all of their problems with the defensive line lacking any pressures or sacks. They don't have that ability. The secondary is banged up. The offensive line is banged up. You've got a quarterback that is playing really good football, but even the guys that are playing well, like Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, have had costly drops this year. They've turned the football over, and they just make mistake after mistake. Do you guys think there is any chance that they could find some magical streak in them?
It would take a hell of a lot of innovation and adjustment, which is something I've been calling for since the bye week, and we just have not really seen it. That feeling you get after that Colts game, that offense you saw in the fourth quarter, it kind of showed up at the beginning of that Dallas game, and you're like, okay, finally, here we go. It's for real this time. Nope, that's just been the theme of the season. You saw the offense against Vegas, against Washington earlier in the year. You said, okay, there they are. Nope, it's gone. To answer your question, no, I don't think so. They're just not consistent enough, and they just cannot get out of their own way.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They're not making the plays. As we discussed before on our previous episode, I said, they're just not making the timely plays, like the Chiefs of old have done. They're not finding a way to get off the field. They're not finding a way to pick up the third downs whenever they need to do that. And like Kyle said, it's gonna take some major change, and I don't see that coming from within anywhere on the staff. I don't know. Everybody on this staff is familiar with what the Chiefs have done. They've been on this staff. The staff hasn't changed on either side of the ball in years now, which is uncommon. You don't really see that from winning teams in today's NFL. Look at the Eagles per se. They've had a different offensive coordinator every single season, it feels like. But I think
other teams want that guy. No
Yeah,
one
see,
wants Matt Nagy.
right. See, and the thing, I think that the Chiefs are going to have to work this offseason to figure out where that change is going to come from. They're going to have to get some type of new blood inside the building to find new, creativeness on the offense. It's not going to come from anywhere on the staff. So, it'll be interesting to see where they go, what direction they go in to try to find that, who they look for. But, it's going to have, like I said, it's going to have to come from outside the building.
You're 1,000% correct, because I think for the Chiefs fans calling for people's jobs, calling for major changes, that would be great. That would be nice. But I think the systemic change that needs to take place is not a mid-season change. That's an off-season change where you need to get some new voices in the building. You need to revamp the way you do things. You can't do that on a bye week. You can't do that, when you're preparing to play, a team on Sunday. This team has to undergo a lot of change. And that's a scary thing, because we're almost entering the back end of the Chiefs dynasty, or at least the new chapter. And they need to figure out, okay, how do we get this train back up and rolling? Because I think the toughest pill to swallow right now, it's not that the Chiefs are not going to make the playoffs or that the Chiefs are not a great football team, but rather that you have wasted a year of prime Patrick Mahomes. You waited 50 years to get this great quarterback. You finally got him and you've had success. And to not put the necessary talent around him to even get to the dance. Because if you get to the dance, you got a chance. And it doesn't seem like the Chiefs are going to get there this year. And so you pissed away a season of the best quarterback in football. And that sucks.
Yeah. And I do take a little bit of an issue, with that stance, wasting a year of Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady didn't go to the playoffs every year. I feel like you Chiefs fans are going to have to do some soul searching and just realize that dynasties sometimes have their down periods. And this may be a glass half full approach, but, take this failure of a season for sure and get better from it in the off season. Changes must be made. The organization just needs, some sort of reset, I guess. But yeah, it's disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, I think that I've heard a lot of people discussing, comparing this season to the end of Andy Reid's tenure in Philadelphia, which I think it's a little bit early on that. I think you may have to pump the brakes a little bit because it's completely different situations. That Eagles team, they had a lot of success and just hadn't overcome. They couldn't just get over the hill and just win, the Super Bowl. They got beaten in the NFC Championship a lot and lost the Super Bowl as well. So I think it's a little bit different than that. But yeah, there's going to be massive change needed in the offseason. And I think this may be what this team, missing the playoff, we discussed it a little bit. Maybe this is what this team needs to really humble them, I think they need a little humble pie to just reassess everybody, reassess this whole roster, bring everybody back to earth and, just get that hunger back inside of them again.
When it's not even just get that hunger back, but now it's emotionally, you can recharge, physically you can recharge, and I think now you aren't the top dog anymore. And that's such a weird thing to say because the Chiefs have been the top dog for 7 or 8 years now. And for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, you are in a spot you've never been in before. Changes need to be made. And I think this team is not that far off for competing for another Super Bowl, but you're going to have to use this offseason as a way to address those issues, fix those issues. And Caden, like you mentioned, the hunger has to be there. Because right now, there's no fight in this team. There's no wanting to win because they're not playing well. And I think, in years prior, the Chiefs have been the hungrier team, the team that wanted it more. I don't feel like that now. I think they're the team that wants it the least, and it's why they're 6-6.
Yeah, and the question of just how much football that they've played over the last 7-8 years, it has to be draining, right? And you feel that this year just because of the staleness of the offense, the undisciplinedness of the team, the predictableness of the defense. Yeah, you feel like maybe it's catching up with them, and that some humble pie, an offseason reset might be in store, and maybe just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, I think you'll see possibly a splash move this offseason, maybe early on, maybe a Trent McDuffie trade. I think just with just how this season has went and the holes that the Chiefs had on both sides of the ball, it's not something that I was up for, but I'm a little bit more open to it. The idea now, I think that you could get some really good value back for Trent McDuffie, but there's a lot of question marks and a lot of retooling that is needed on this roster.
Absolutely. And it sucks that we're talking about this with 5 games left to go, but we've had 3.5 months to talk about this team, and it's so fun to do these videos with you guys, but it seems like every week we're like, oh, Chiefs suck doing this. Can they change it? And the resounding answer has been no. So, I think that's the fun about this team being so mediocre, is that we get to talk about how they're going to build it back up and what they need to do to actually improve, because it's hard to criticize a team when they've gone to 5 out of the last 6 Super Bowls. And, oh, yeah, their way is better because they've won. Now their way is not better because they're not winning. And so we get to talk about how this team gets to build it back up. But I think that is all the time we have in this video. My final question for you is, where can the people find your content?
Follow me on Twitter at Kyle Collier _810. Listen to me on Sports Radio 810, The Night Shift with these two fellas, this channel. And then I also produce the program with Soren Petro, weekdays 2 to 6.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Cadence Rule 810. And then on Wednesday nights, I produce The Take with Andy Sweeney from 7 to 9. And then The Night Shift with Michael and Kyle from 9 to 10.
And guys, all their stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.